Welcome to AGHOST Stories.
I'm Gabby.
And I'm Kim. We are a part of AGHOST, Advanced Ghost Hunters of Seattle, Tacoma.
And we are here to share tales of our and others' firsthand paranormal experiences that bring us back again and again to share our evidence.
We're really excited to talk about our new topic today. Kim, what's our new topic today?
Our new topic today is the Butterworth building.
The Butterworth building. But we actually have a special guest.
We do.
And I'm really excited to welcome him on. This is Jake Rice. Hello, Jake Rice. How are you?
I am fine and dandy, my lovely ladies of morbidity.
I like that.
I am not mad.
I am not mad about that.
That's a real nice nickname. I feel like we might need to steal it for something.
I do. I want a t-shirt that says that at least.
This is going to go down a very dark, dark hole.
That's true.
We hope.
I was going to say, we're making promises now. A dark, dark hole.
I mean...
Oh, no. And off to a good start.
Woo, woo.
So, Jake is actually one of our ghost group members.
I'm a nerd.
Co-ghost.
I look for
sounds
dead
weird.
people.
He does
We all
look for
look
dead
for the dead
people.
people.
I mean, he looks for dead people, but also he hunts for ghosts. Those are two separate things.
Yeah, that is... Yeah, that's a good point.
At least in my world, they are.
One would hope.
Well, you're also our mistress of true crime.
That is true.
Yes, and you
And the
know,
bodies matter more. in
they
true crime.
truly do. And I'm glad that you're bringing up bodies, Jake, because we're going to be talking a lot about bodies today.
Bodies are going to be plentiful in this story.
Yes. So I did some Googling.
A Googling.
And some
It's my favorite
research.
encyclopedia, the
Here
Google.
we come, a
The
Google.
Googler. But also just, we've all heard about the Butterworth building.
We have, yes.
Yeah.
As Seattleites, it's hard not to.
Exactly. And I think the first time I ever heard about it was when I was on a ghost tour before I lived in Seattle. I actually, when I would travel to different cities, I would love to do ghost tours because I love the history behind it. And then I also enjoy, something spookier, right? You enjoy the spooks.
You enjoy spooks?
I enjoy the spooks. And I think the first time I heard about Butterworth was when my boyfriend Terrence and I went on a driving ghost tour.
Oh, yeah.
And they took us and pulled over on, it's on First, right?
It's a little sketchy.
Yeah, it's a
It is.
little
It's
bit
on
of an
First,
area.
yeah.
It's on
1921 First Avenue.
1921 First Avenue. I'm not going to lie to
Pine
you.
and First Avenue.
That address threw me off a few times when I was researching, and I kept thinking that they were talking about the year
The year.
1921.
Yep, that's legit.
But they talk about the Butterworth. They talk about the Butterworth. All the people that know anything spooky in Seattle know about Butterworth. And I was actually super stoked to do some research on this because I only know a couple of the ghost stories. I just know it's a super spooky building, but I didn't know much other than that. I know you guys both know a lot more. So I'm going to give you the facts and the deets that I looked up today.
The cold hard facts.
Yes. And then
Facts matter.
Please join me in talking about this if you hear something that you're like, I would like to add to this. I know more things.
If I might chime in.
Yes. Please do chime.
I will chime.
Tap, tap,
That's
tap,
actually
tap.
the
I got
sound I will
something
make.
to say. I got no.
I'll go bing.
You guys should have your own sound effects.
Can't we? Are you giving us
Oh
permission?
my gosh, we should do sound effects.
We've been given
Wait,
permission.
okay, Kim, what's your sound effect?
Oh, wait, I'm not just binging?
I mean, do you want that to be your sound effect?
Well, now it's on the spot. I haven't thought this
It's a
through.
bing. You're a bing.
I'm a bing.
You're a
Okay.
bing.
This is a
Okay.
very important decision.
It is. Okay, but Jake, what do you want?
I'm going to go...
Oh my god, I'm deaf. Okay, so
Oh,
every
that's right. I was
time...
close up to this one. I might have blown some eardrums there.
Yeah, that's the eardrum's gone. It's just out the window.
It's up.
That's actually
I
not a
could
bad
turn the
sound
gain
effect.
down on this
It's a good
Focusrite.
So I think, Jake, what if you did a woo, like a spooky sound?
A spooky sound.
Well, maybe I'll do that disco. Woo!
Okay, I like that.
I like
Let's do
that.
it. All right, so Kim, what's your noise?
Wait, am I doing that?
You can if you would like to. I thought you were doing the bang.
All right, I'll bing.
Is that a Fluvic? What?
That just sounds really farty. It's audio, guys.
I've been hanging around with children all week, and that noise has been made in my direction multiple times. Not counting the kid that likes to growl at me.
Oh no.
What?
Yeah. Oh no, there's this kid who flat out, when they're angry, goes.
That was how I felt all day today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know the Pacific Northwest is known for its serial killers.
That's true, and I
that's true.
think
They're
I'm
bred.
witnessing the birth of one.
They're bred from a young age. So anyway, Kim's a little gassy tonight, so she'll that'll be her sound effect.
Cool.
And then Jake, whatever sound effect you'd like to do. But so whenever you have a moment where you would like to chime in,
Just throw something at
please
you.
join us. This is gonna be a great
I
podcast
shall.
episode, guys. This is gonna be really good. All right, so Edgar Ray Butterworth.
You have to imagine he got made fun of for that name. I'm sorry.
It's really funny because I remember mentioning this name to someone when I was saying I was researching it, and they thought I was talking about the syrup.
Syrup.
Bingo.
And I was just like, and then I didn't even realize I actually have that syrup in the kitchen.
Oh,
I
nice.
actually have it at my house.
Is there any relation between the two?
I don't know if there is. We should do another episode
We should do
on
another
that.
episode just on that.
But as far as I know, no. Edgar Ray Butterworth. Let's talk about this, sir. He was born in the Boston suburbs on March 3rd, 1847. He died January 1st, 1921. Fun fact, little punny, little interesting. 1921. That number keeps
1921.
coming up, right?
That is true.
So he actually worked as a cattleman in
Ooh.
Kansas. So he went out west and he was collecting bones of
Like you do.
buffalo. I think it was buffalo. I could be wrong.
Like for funsies?
Well, he would collect the bones and then it would be turned into fertilizer. And he
Oh.
would sell it to people as fertilizer, and that's how he would make a living off of of nothing, essentially.
I didn't know you could make fertilizer from bones.
Oh,
Oh, wait, I hear a whoop. There it is.
Whoop, there it is. Whoop,
Okay.
there it
Oh,
is.
I'm gonna have to change it because it makes my dogs bark. So you're hearing little sweet Wallace Edward, who's my
Aw, Molly has
75-pound
something to
pit bull,
say.
who's got something to say. Yes, but I will say with our plant food that we use, in the back for the trees and the shrubs,
Yeah.
it is actually mulched up bones and marrow.
Isn't that interesting?
My
Full
dogs
circle.
want to eat it every time I put it down.
I mean, dogs like bones. That makes sense.
That's true.
So
That's
there's
really
trivia.
interesting.
It works wonderfully. I find fish guts works better, but
I have heard. Yeah.
I was gonna say, how would you know this?
No. I heard that. That is something I knew about. My grandmother used to be a gardener.
That's wild.
And that was something she had talked about.
Interesting. Interesting.
yeah, every time I go to the market and we get fish, I always ask for the guts. Like, give me all the guts I can get because Daddy's grown some big leafy trees.
Oh gosh, that sounded real interesting.
Now,
Give Daddy the
do
guts.
do human guts work the same way? Is my question.
Well, guess who probably found that out?
There's so
Is
many.
Mr. Butterworth.
That's true.
Ooh,
Mr. Butterworth
tell.
probably found
Full
that
circle.
out. Full circle.
So speaking of Sir Butterworth, E.R. Butterworth, so he would sell these bones, right? And that's how he made his living. And he actually lost his first wife during childbirth to his first son, Gilbert, which is super sad. And so while he was traveling, he actually came across a grieving settler. And this grieving settler was grieving his wife and child, who both passed away during childbirth. And so he was super sympathetic toward this guy because he went through something similar.
He knew what it was like.
Yeah, totally. I mean, at least his kid lived, right?
Yeah.
But he understood the aspect and the idea of needing to bury someone and needing to mourn them. And this settler didn't have access to lumber to make coffins because they were in the middle of nowhere. They had nothing, right? So they were on the prairie, and Butterworth decides, you know what? I'm going to help this guy out. I'm going to take apart my wagon and build coffins for this settler's wife and child. And those were the first coffins he ever made.
Wow.
Fun fact. So, pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And this guy was pretty smart. He started to see how there were needs that weren't necessarily being met, right, in business. And this was the intro to that for him. So, Fast forward, he moves from Kansas to Centralia, which is it's like 2 hours south of Seattle.
Yeah.
And we actually just did an investigation there not too long ago, which we could probably talk about at a later time. But he actually opened a furniture store there, which makes me think I want to go to Centralia and find it. But that's just
Is it still open?
I don't know if it's like one of those antique stores, but it's something that we could definitely look into, because there's so many different antique stores in Centralia, and that town still looks like really like kitschy almost. It's still pretty old. But what's interesting is he opened a furniture store, and about 10 years into living there, he at this point had 5 kids, 5 sons, and a new wife. And there was a huge wave of black diphtheria. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
Diphtheria.
Yeah.
Which is a bacterial infection of the nose and the throat that just like destroyed people. So all these people were dying. There was an influx of people dying and not enough caskets to bury them in. So he literally started a casket business selling caskets out of his furniture store.
Oh, wow.
And so his furniture store inevitably shifted into that. And in 1892, he decided to move his family and his business to Seattle. So he purchased a controlling interest in the Cross and Company Undertakers, which were located in the Masonic Temple. And this became the first full-service funeral home.
Wow.
Pretty interesting. So what's also pretty wild is that back in the day, it was a pretty good time to be in the death business. Not sure if you guys know. I know we kind of briefly touched on it in episode 1, where we talked about how like gross the city was.
It was pretty gross.
Shit geysers.
Shit geysers.
Right? There's lots of disease, lots of people dying. There was a horrible case of the influenza that went through and killed a bunch of people. And I think at one point I saw something when I was looking this stuff up that people wouldn't leave their homes and wouldn't go outside unless they had a mask on to prevent them from getting sick from someone else.
I would believe that. Yeah.
Right? Because so many people are dying. So at this point, there's lots of rodents transmitting diseases, plague, all this kind of stuff. And I actually found a fun number. Okay, so in 1910, there were 2,462 recorded deaths in Seattle.
Okay.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Of those, 35 were murders.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But in 1 year, 100 years prior, there were only 9 murders. So it increased from 9 to 35 within a century. So it's just interesting to see. Obviously, there's more people living there within a century, so that makes a little bit of sense.
Quite a bit more, actually.
And get this. Do you know how many homicides were in Seattle in 2018?
Oh, I actually did for the murder tour. I can't remember the number off the top of my head.
I know because Gabby told me.
I gave you the information.
Is it 666?
No, I wish. Are you kidding me? That would be way cooler and also very scary. There were actually 31. There were 31 homicides in Seattle in 2018. So there were 35 in 1910.
Yeah.
So,
but in 1910 too, this is back when the city was still being run. I mean, my God, I think 1910 it was still an open city. Like vice was rampant.
Yeah.
This was when the mayor at the time tried to open a 500-room brothel in Beacon Hill.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah. And so that with the police chief.
Oh, wow.
Right.
I love debauchery.
Corruption is very, very, it's a very common theme here in Seattle. And we're going to go down that road in a little bit. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of background of like what death really looked like back in the day. And also, it's kind of scary that now we're not in the same situation, but there's still that many homicides. Interesting. And fun fact, too, is that...
How many of them were in Pioneer Square?
Oh, I don't know that. I wish I could tell you. But I will tell you that that number was the highest it's been in 10 years recently. So anyway, reel it back in. So Butterworth purchased this building, right? And he ended up designing it with a British architect, and his name was John Graham Sr. Do you guys know who that is? Have you heard of him before?
The name rings a bell.
So he did the Roosevelt Hotel.
That's right.
And he also did a lot of the really old University of Washington facilities.
Right.
So all those like really beautiful buildings that look kind of similar to what you see in downtown. Yes, like they have art in those walls, right? So it's designed by him. It was a Beaux Art style. I'm gonna give you some detail because I went deep.
You went deep. You went deep.
We love the
like
nerdery.
it when you go deep.
Oh God, here it is. All right. So there were sandstone Greco-Roman archways formed the main entrance, which you can still see today.
Yeah, that's true.
And 3 stories up on the main metal cornice that capped the building, there were 4 sculpted lion heads that look out onto First Avenue.
Ooh.
At the back of the building, the service alley led to the livery and stables on the ground floor, and this is where bodies would be dropped off. So it's the entrance on the back side of the building.
Post alley. Yep.
And in the floors above, it was decorated really beautifully. They had mahogany, there was ornamental plaster, stained glass, bronze, and brass hardware. And it looked like just a huge Victorian mansion, essentially. So it also included a crematorium, a columbarium, an elevator, a columbarium.
That's a great
What?
word. Columbarium.
Columbarium.
I love it.
Kim's going to do some research right now.
I am.
An elevator for transporting bodies.
The first one on the West Coast.
Right.
Actually, a lot of this was the first ever, all put in the same spot.
I do have a definition for columbarium.
Tell me.
It is a place for the respectful and usually public storage of urns for holding cremated remains. But it can also mean the nesting boxes of pigeons. So I have a feeling I know which of those 2 it is. It's obviously the pigeons.
It's definitely the pigeons.
Definitely the pigeons.
Definitely the pigeons. I really like that that's the other option.
Those are the 2 extremes. It's either a place you put urns or it's a place where pigeons
Wait,
live.
hold on. What if you... No, I'm going to go real dark with this. What if you end up cremating a pigeon?
I mean, I'm sure it's happened. There's a lot of pigeons.
And you put it in an urn and leave it there. That's just like a double whammy.
That is a double whammy.
Oh,
it's like looking into a mirror forever.
Which essentially is what the Butterworth building is.
That is true.
All right. So it also had a casket showroom. This was the first ever casket showroom.
Which, can we talk about that for a second?
What, the purpose of it? Or
well, no, I mean, I understand the purpose of it, but like a casket showroom, am I the only one that finds that slightly ridiculous?
I mean,
like a car showroom.
Here's the deal.
Well,
you have to remember what time it is, like what period of time it is, and the fact that they're trying to make money.
No, I get it. I mean, it's still a thing.
It is still a thing, but now they have like Amazon casket.
Yeah, which is a whole other thing. I just find the idea of like, come into our casket showroom.
I mean, it's like a bed for a vampire. What if they're just like shopping?
Well, yeah, but that's different. If I'm a vampire searching for an awesome casket, of course I'm going to go to the casket showroom. But like, do you pick out your casket before you die?
Well, it's interesting you say that.
Yeah.
Because this was the time when people started to do that. So it's really nuts because like you have the demand for funerals, right? Because people are dying,
right?
But then that also kind of catapults the business into what it's become today. Because the way that companies like this make money isn't just by, I mean, my mom says it all the time. People are dying to get in, like jokes, right? So it's one of those things where, like, you always know people are going to keep dying. You'll always have a business, but how are you going to exceed your sales goals? How are you going to make more money? You're going to sell to the people that are alive for themselves.
I guess I've never been someone who is super cared about what happens to my body after I die because I'm dead.
Right, but check it out. So this is actually a good segue because one of the things that Butterworth offered was the fact that back in the day, they didn't really have like open casket.
Right. The showings.
Showings. So this was a whole new thing for people.
Unless you were Catholic.
Well, but even then, they didn't have a way to like keep the bodies intact.
That's true. Fresh.
So yes, keep them fresh. So what's interesting is not only did they have the casket showroom, they had a chapel that could fit 200 people in it, which is a lot. It had pews made of Flemish oak.
Ooh,
It had a choir loft and a balcony. It was pretty serious business.
Actually, I've been up in it. It's cool.
I haven't been there. That's so cool that you've been there.
Oh, I am so jealous. Did you do that through a tour that we don't know about?
I did it. It was a number of years ago, and it was when they were still doing. It was only on, I want to say, like Friday nights or something. But they would let people go in. You'd have to, buy a ticket or whatever. But yeah,
Okay.
You had to pay for it.
I would love to see
yeah,
that.
it was really interesting. And we were in the
Nice.
chapel.
That's very cool. I actually just recently found a photo of it, and I will be posting it to our Instagram.
Oh, I took a bunch of pictures. I'll have to
Yes.
see if I can find those.
I have like original photos from a.
Nice. Okay, that's better.
Well, I mean, we can see what it looks like now versus what it looks like then.
Not good.
But check out the Instagram, AGHOST Stories.
AGHOST
if you wanna see
Stories.
it. But
Yeah.
he not only was there this like fancy chapel, but it was rigged with a system of light signals. So the paid choir, they were paid.
They were like the
It would
on-premises
be
choir.
cued. It would be their cues to tell them when to start and stop singing,
Oh.
which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So these are the services that he offered. He offered removal of body from residence to mortuary.
Okay.
So
Body
you don't have to
retrieval.
deal with your dead people.
That's fair. Bring out your dead.
Yeah, nope. He actually offered embalming. So this is why I was talking about the open casket situation.
Ah.
So they bathed. I'm like saying it like he did every single one. They bathed, embalmed, and dressed and took care of the body. There were like directors, assistants, all these people arranging all the details for the funeral and at the cemetery and how things were going to work. There were notices in daily press, and there was a gray cloth covered casket with crushed silk interior, and it was fully trimmed on the inside. So super nice looking, fancy showroom type caskets. Because to your point, in the past, caskets were like a box.
Yeah.
And now this is like when things started to get bougie. The hearse service and 2 limousines. He had 2 limos.
Jeez.
That's kind of excessive.
Decadent.
Right? Like, what kind of money was paying for this, right? So you have to think there's a lot of money being invested into this.
Coffin showroom money.
Right? I mean, funerals are expensive now.
They are.
Like, think about when they started.
And
originally.
headstones, my God.
Everything.
Yeah. So I've got it. I got a stat
Tell me.
for that. I got a stat for that. This is trends. So over the past decade, funerals represent less than 30% of, I guess, burial services
Wow.
or, dealing with
Wow.
the dead. The rest, cremation. The average cremation with a picture and urn and goes for $1,800.
I would have thought that'd be the cheaper option
Yeah,
for some reason.
versus. Oh, I thought that was pretty cheap. I mean, we've got the green composting. Was it
yeah.
Yeah,
compost?
Washington's
Is
the
that
first
it?
state to do it.
I want to be mangoes.
No, I'd be down for that.
Yeah, I'm totally gonna grow
You're going to be like
mangoes.
Mango from SNL. Mango loves you.
Mhm.
Anyway, I can't. You can't take me anywhere, guys. But that's really interesting. They actually also cut roses just for the interior of the casket.
So like rose-lined caskets?
Rose-lined caskets
That's
with like
bonkers.
silk interiors.
Ooh,
Like,
fancy.
bougie.
Wow.
Like, if I was planning my own funeral at this point in time and I would see like a wooden box or this, I mean,
I think I'll just donate my skeleton to the Death Museum.
perfect.
That's
So
cool. Can you make sure you still haunt it though? Because we need more ghosts in the underground.
that's
That's a
half the
given.
point.
In life and
Okay,
in death.
perfect.
Exactly.
Perfect. And you also get an organist at this. Not an organist like someone who organizes things, but someone who plays an
Oh, see, I went into organs, so.
organ.
Organ.
Not- Yeah, thank you. I'm like, there's lots of organs in the English language, not like the state.
That's true.
But okay, so reeling it back in. Okay, so prior to the Civil War, let's go way back. Funerals were pretty basic. If someone died, there was a wake and a church service and a burial. And it was pretty straightforward, nothing too bougie, nothing too fancy. There weren't all these bells and whistles. In the war between the North and the South, the corpses of soldiers were kind of all over the place. So they were separated from their homes by distance. Not everyone was always taken care of. There was an abundance of dead bodies and not a lot of time or money to like make sure that they were buried the right way. And they sat for days on the battlefield often before loved ones could come and like identify them, if they could even identify them. So like decay has set in at this point, right? So there were undertakers that started to see that this was happening. And this is where Butterworth kind of got the idea from, is he would use the techniques used by ancient Egyptians in keeping mummified.
So he was like, this was something he really
invested into this.
Wow.
It's pretty wild. So he drained the bodies of the natural fluids,
like you do,
as one does, pumped it with formaldehyde.
And a Capri Sun
Yep,
straw.
exactly. And then charged families $100 a pop.
Which
Just
in this
to have
time, that's expensive.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Just to have an open casket. And so in order to have an open casket, not only do you have to pay extra, but this has to happen to your loved one.
Because otherwise you could fester and it would be gross.
Well, it's just going to be disgusing. Why would you want to look at like a rotting corpse in an open casket? I mean, not everyone's like us, Kim.
Fine.
I know. So, interesting, right?
Yeah. No, that's fascinating.
So, basically, he made embalming the main goal for all funerals. So he wanted all funerals to basically have that open casket so that he would make more money.
Because that's where the money is. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly. So he wants to make all the money. So he was very entrepreneurial.
Words
Can
are
I
hard.
talk? Words are very hard.
Words are hard.
So everything was preserved.
Okay.
Things weren't dead as they used to be anymore.
Or at least not as smelly.
Not as well. And fun fact.
Fun fact. Because he bathed them too, so they're not going to be smelly in that way.
No, but they also would put flowers everywhere to help.
Oh, that's
with the
right.
scent,
Yeah, all the roses. Oh, yeah, that would.
Yeah. So basically, moral of the story is that Butterworth invented what we now know to be the funeral, and he actually came up with the term mortuary and mortician. Like that came from him. And popularized the expensive rites that we now know to be bougie, if you will.
I had no idea he was so instrumental in developing like our modern funeral.
Yeah, because no one else really did it.
Yeah,
and
fascinating.
Like it's like almost like when you look at a city that's kind of rampant with craziness that we would be like, oh my god, that's nuts. I would never deal with that.
Right.
He wrangled a lot of it and had control over the parts of it that allowed things to be more civil.
Yeah.
But
there's a but and worth.
Yes, there's a but and worth. Butterworth. There was some shady shit.
Yeah.
There was some legit shady shit going on. So we talked
Seattle too.
I mean, corruption. So remember how we talked about embalming to make someone look proper? So instead of doing that with everyone who paid to do it, there may have been certain people that were cremated because someone didn't want their bodies to be seen in the way that they looked.
I know at least one person who wouldn't.
Who?
Is it Linda Hazard?
It sure is Linda Hazard.
Woo woo! Linda Hazard for the win!
So another pretty spoopy person in the Pacific Northwest is Linda Hazard.
Which we'll be doing probably a whole episode on.
So I'm going to put ellipses on that for now. So that way y'all can tune in to the Linda Hazard and Starvation Heights episode when we do it. But she actually did have a connection with Butterworth.
Yes.
And so essentially, moral of the story, she killed people. So we know this.
She didn't just kill people, so
she starved
them to death.
And so they were very skinny, like bone skinny. Like people weighed like 60 pounds.
Yeah.
And so...
And you can find pictures.
Yeah.
And it is genuinely disturbing.
Yeah. And I don't want to give away too much, but I just want to give you the visual of that skinny of a person. So if that person's family thought that this person died naturally...
Right.
And wanted to come to their funeral... they would want to have an open casket to see what they looked like. So instead, Linda Hazard paid Butterworth to cremate the bodies and put somebody else in there.
Yeah.
Now, this is where I question, how does the family not recognize the person that's in the casket? But I guess, like, they could have the excuse of death and, like...
I feel like there could be multiple excuses there. Because if the family didn't live local, they may not have seen the person in a while.
That's true.
And as good as it sounds like he was with his technique, a dead body in the early 1900s is still a dead body in the early 1900s. Bodies start to bloat. You put makeup, you could put a wig, you know, eyes are closed. Any abnormality, you could always just say, oh, that's what happens when they die.
That's true.
And the family is not going to know any better, because who would have?
Yeah, and especially if it was a horrible death, like if they drowned and they were in the water for a couple of days.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of ways around that, and they also use some pretty hardcore makeup techniques even then. And so, I mean, you can do. Think about how many photo shoots you have of like celebrities dressing up as other celebrities, and how if you just put the right makeup on somebody, the right hair,
of makeup.
Yeah, particularly when someone's eyes are closed.
Oh, that's true. You could even paint eyes on eyelids and make them look awake.
Yeah, they did that.
That's kind of spoopy.
They did that.
Yeah, but I mean, during the Spanish influenza, because I mean, they would cover the face. I don't think they could have an open casket.
Well, and you could use that as an excuse too. Oh, you don't want to look at their face because of whatever happened. It's their face has been disfigured or distorted.
That's true.
Yeah, I was reading about the Spanish flu, and people would bleed from their ears and eyes.
Oh yeah,
that's like the most metal thing.
Bleeding from your ears and eyes, or the most Stranger Things thing.
That's a lot of things.
That's true.
That was more than nose, I suppose.
Yeah.
All the things.
So shady shit. Let's talk some more about shady shit. Okay.
Let's talk shady shit.
So pretty much Linda Hazard had something to do with that. Yeah. However, there's more shady shit. Now with this shady shit, I feel like shady shit's going to be our like shit geysers.
I would say that is our current drinking game word. Shady shit. Take a shot.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else.
Or we could go Butterworth building.
You thought I was going to go shit geysers with it.
No, I thought you were going to say shady shit, take a shit.
That's what I mean. Shady shit, take a shit, geyser.
Okay, so
I was going to say, we are now rated E for explicits.
And if you need to pause and use the restroom, by all means.
Because we've said the word shit so many times.
You know, if you need to use the restroom when we're done with this episode, then maybe there's like some subliminal shit going on.
Well, and also, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Because it's important to be regular.
Flushed. All right.
It is.
So
Linda Hazard way.
Speaking of, all right, so there was also a period of time in Seattle. I know I talked about how there was this demand for caskets because so many people were dying.
Right.
It's not just a demand for caskets that they had, but it was a demand for getting rid of bodies. So a lot of the times when there were these diseases going through, the streets would be like lined with dead bodies, and it would be decaying there, right then and there.
And gross.
Yeah, just it's worse than shit geysers.
Yeah. And disease.
Yeah. And that's how
rats gotta eat.
Yeah, rats gotta eat when a rat's gotta eat.
Oh, perfect.
And this is also the point in time when the rat population was recuperating from the Great Seattle Fire, where 1 million rats lost their lives.
R.I.P.
Let's take a moment for those rats.
In memoriam.
This is terrible. We're awful people.
We are. It's fine. Embrace it. Sometimes you have to lean into it, and then life gets better.
I'm going to quote you on that. That's going to be the quote of life. So anyway, because all these people were in the streets, the demand was we need to get them processed.
Right.
So we need to put them in the ground. So
in the ground.
And not just like dig a hole, put them in the ground. They wanted it done the right way.
Well,
so they had to have Butterworth because he's Mr. Boss Man.
He's the body man. Butterworth the body man.
Oh, that's weird. That's kind of spoopy a little bit. So basically what would happen is all these people would be brought to Butterworth. But there was actually a dollar amount that was given to people who brought in.
Well, because he was getting paid
bodies.
too.
Right. So he was saying, though, or not he, the city was saying, if you bring in bodies, we'll pay you $50. And so Butterworth was profiting from that. But so were the people that were bringing in the bodies. So it'd be like split in half. So Butterworth would take 25, and then the people bringing in the body would be given 25.
Although, fun side note to that, I want to say it's his great, two or three greats, grandson has disputed that he participated in that.
I was going to say a lot of this like shady shit says, like online, if you read about it, there might not necessarily be fact-based things, but it did happen.
It did happen,
yeah.
And I also kind of want to say, how does his great-great-great-grandson know for sure that he didn't?
Right. He's probably just trying to protect the family name.
Which is legit. But unless, I mean, he wasn't around then, and other than him potentially denying it, people deny things doesn't mean it didn't happen.
State of our current country.
What?
So, I think, Kim, you were telling me earlier, people got a little greedy.
People did get a little greedy. They also got a little creative.
Oh, tell me.
So, during this time, too, you do have people coming back from Alaska, from the gold rush, who have gold. And there's a particular story I've read about as well as heard about involving people coming back from the gold rush, and a local Seattleite would find out the name of somebody. They'd buy them a drink. They'd drug the drink. They would tie them down to the pier at low tide, rob them. Once the tide came in, they would drown.
Oh, they did.
They did.
They bloated.
They'd be bloated. Tide to go back out. They'd collect the body, take it to the mortuary, and get another $25.
Oh my God, that's like the worst death. Could you imagine?
Yeah, but what the other thing about tying them down there is you could get some good crab when that tide went down.
Legitimately. No, you really could.
Yeah.
Because crabs eat meat.
You get $25 and some really succulent crab meat, that's hanging off this corpse.
That's freshly fed, so it's feeling nice and nice. And, I wish. Wait, can I take a picture of your face to put on the Instagram, because it's amazing right now. It's like the Gabby face that's so disgusted by what's happening. The thought of crabs eating bodies and then people eating the crabs that ate the bodies, which is also a nice little circle.
Circle of life.
It's a little circle of life.
I mean, that's the system. That's the ecosystem for you.
Oh, guys, that's the most unattractive picture I've ever seen of myself.
Mostly because you're making a face that's like...
I look like Beaker.
Oh, this crab is so delicious. What's the secret? Honey, butter, and swede.
It's very Sweeney Todd.
Oh, man. Well, yep, so that happened.
That did happen.
That's pretty messed up. So, moral of the story is this happened for a long time.
A while.
So, fun facts, too, is that Butterworth didn't stop at this one building.
No.
So, he actually purchased a mortuary in Capitol Hill, which is now the Pine Box.
Yes, which is awesome, P.S.
Yeah, it's a great bar, but it's legit, like, that was one of Butterworth's mortuaries. And it still looks pretty spooky inside.
Well, and my personal favorite is that their pizza oven.
Mm-hmm.
You knew this, right?
I actually did not know this.
Oh,
I didn't know this.
You know what their pizza oven is?
The crematorium. Oh man! So you might have some ashes in.
You might get a little extra something.
That's not pepper.
Yeah, no, they put the.
Would you like a people pizza?
That's like 2/3 the reasons I go there. Is I just think it's cool that I'm eating a pizza that was cooked where the
Kim the cannibal.
I'm a vegetarian. I'll have you know, I am a vegetarian, but
with the exception of people.
Well, yeah, there's too many of them.
I mean, duh. So yeah, if you haven't been and you're in Seattle or you're visiting Seattle, you should definitely go to the Pine Box.
Have some people pizza.
Yeah, and they have pews there, and
it is cool.
It's pretty spooky.
It's real
looking.
fun.
But they also have a really cool shirt, so you can promote them. if you want to buy their shirt. But
Yeah.
I also hear that they have good alcohol. But
They do have good alcohol.
There you go.
I will speak to their alcohol. It is good.
And then maybe you'll have a spoopy experience when you're there because
People do. Yeah.
that might be a different episode for us.
Yeah. Well, and
think
actually,
we
maybe
might
we
do
could
that.
even talk to some people who work there.
That would be a good idea. I like that.
Yeah, we could do an on
Noted.
location.
And on location.
And we would need to like set up a little table with our mics and just put pillows around us everywhere.
You just let me know and I can rig it. You can rig this.
So
It's
for
gonna
those
happen.
of you that don't know, this podcast would not be a thing if it was not for Jay Gray.
It really
He's
wouldn't.
so awesome.
He is.
Legit has like basically done our whole website, showed me how to do all this audio stuff, and now I'm doing all the editing. So I'm like, thank you, sir, for showing me this. Terrence showed me a bunch of audio stuff, but Jake legit is like the best.
Yep.
So
Thank you very
you should
much.
also, I'm gonna plug you right now.
Yes.
And check out his website. It's ghostlyactivities.com. So he has a spoopy podcast sitch as well and has lots of cool, like, if you want to hunt ghosts, check out this little
Gadget.
thing. Thank you. If you want to hear about this place, look at this article. And it's super well done and it looks super like clean and visually appealing. So for those of you that are OCD like I am, you'll enjoy this. But yes, thank you, Jake.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Thanks. So if we do an episode at Pine Box, Jake will definitely be with us.
Yes.
I will totally come. I'll bring the
Yes.
mics. It'll be amazing.
Oh, I'm so excited. We have to plan it. So anyway, that's one of the locations of Butterworth. But also, I actually did some personal research because I live in the Queen Anne area
Right.
of Seattle, and there's actually a Butterworth funeral home
There is.
in Queen Anne, still functioning to this day,
That is true.
which is pretty wild. So it lives on.
It does.
Pun
It
intended.
does.
Even
Although
if the people don't.
I don't believe anyone from the actual family
I don't think they have affiliation.
has
with it.
any affiliation. I think
No.
once it was sold, it
It's
was
owned by a different
sold.
company.
Yeah.
But it
Aren't
still
they out
has
of
the name.
Louisiana or something like that?
Texas.
Yeah. That's all the same.
It's out of Texas, yeah.
Okay.
But okay, so that's the history. So sorry that was a little long-winded, but we got to tell you the ghost stories now. So that was then, this is now. So let's talk about what the businesses are that live in the location of the Butterworth building today.
Yeah.
So Kell's Irish Pub.
Right.
Kell's Pub is located at the Post Alley entrance. And it's in the exact spot where all those bodies would be dropped off. So it occupies the former embalming room specifically and the crematorium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And workers would actually put bodies into the elevator at where Kell's is, and then it would be taken to the third floor to process them for burial when it was in Butterworth. So literally anyone being processed would go through that space. So Jake, do you want to talk a little bit about the ghost that you know about?
Well, so there's essentially two ghosts that you hear about there. And what's really interesting is they're active both during the day and night. So everyone's like, oh, it's night, ghost, blah, blah. No, it can happen anytime.
They can
So
happen anytime.
The ghost can manifest at any time. But one of them is, and I don't know what is up with this, like, archetype. There's a curly red-haired girl
Just
It
kidding.
is.
that
I have
shows
heard.
up and and wants to play with folks that are out, especially on the patio on a nice day.
with me.
That's not
Come
creepy.
play with me. What do you want to play? Soul sucking death touch.
How do you know what I used to play when I was a kid?
That's amazing.
You played that too?
I did.
That's
I
awesome.
didn't have many neighbor kids in my.
You just had the ghost friends.
Yeah.
I used to have neighbor friends.
So-
And then they played the game with me.
But I think the most active one is he goes by the name of Charlie. So he's an older gentleman, wears a wears a hat, and he appears in the mirrors, but especially whenever there's a night with a live band performance. Because a lot of people, especially the ghost hunters, so let's just rag on ghost hunters. They always have to be super serious.
That's
okay?
true, they do.
And
Clearly,
I gotta
we are
tell,
not bad.
like, if you were alive, would you want to hang out with the sourpuss? Hell no.
No.
You want to hang out with the happy drunk people that are like strumming the banjo.
The cool kids.
And so Charlie the ghost appears in mirrors and stuff, and he might move around a chair, or he might be this old gentleman you see in the corner, but he's really into the music and drinking, and he wants to make friends. Doesn't, stick around very long.
Charlie and I have a lot in common.
Yeah. So those are the two most common, but there are phantoms that have been seen. I think it's in the second floor where the balcony is of it. That is, they say that's the most active part, but nowadays you can only get access to Kell's, but get the red ale. It's really amazing at Kell's.
It's not haunted, is it?
No, but I mean, you
into
might
a
be seeing
ghost.
some spirits a little bit later on.
Booyah.
Oh, there you go.
But that's Kell's in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I also I remember reading that the little girl actually gets more active during the day because sometimes kids are let into the bar during the day because it might be like a family or something.
It's a restaurant. It's a restaurant.
It's a restaurant and bar. And so I think even when we talked about merchants in episode 1, Kim had mentioned how when there was a kid on her tour, the child ghost was more active.
Yeah,
so,
she's always more active when there's kids around.
Yeah, and so I think that's the same case here.
Yeah.
That when there's kids around, this spirit tends to hang out. But she's a little bit more playful and plays pranks and kind of throws things around and moves things.
A little naughty.
Little naughty girl.
Some touching, maybe some hair pulling.
A little hair tug.
Naughty
girl.
And I think there's an idea that she potentially died in an influenza outbreak in 1918.
Yeah.
So that's her. And then I did a little bit more digging, and I actually found lots of different information, but it all had to do with the different businesses that have functions throughout that building.
Yes.
So things are often thrown off shelves and glasses fly off the bar. This happens at Kell's still. And I remember reading something where someone was visiting Kell's and they saw a glass fly off and they reacted to it, but the bartender didn't flinch. And it's because it happens all the time.
Right.
So that the bartender's like, oh, there they go.
Yeah.
There it is again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with the Butterworth building, and this is the unfortunate thing because it's got private businesses in it now, but the stairwell is supposed to be one of the more haunted spots there. They got a little boy named Jacob who they think died in the 19... I know, I'm actually the reincarnation. But died in the influenza outbreak in 1918, and then you've got Chief Seattle, his
You're not
daughter.
supposed to say it.
I'm not?
No, you don't say because it's means his spirit won't find peace.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh,
that's
shit.
why.
This
That's
is what
why.
happens.
That's
Look,
why
I'm
we
from
changed
Chicago.
the name. That's why we changed the name to Seattle.
Oh.
It's why we don't say his actual name. I mean, beyond the fact that the white people couldn't say it, which they could, but it's why we don't say his actual name.
Oh,
See, I'm an import. I mean,
so am I, and I didn't know. It's fine. We all know.
Take the tour. You'll hear all about it.
Well, I did, but I didn't. I'm trying to be all authentic, help the listener, and now poor Chief Seattle will not be able to sleep tonight. So I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to go to was it Azel's Chicken and get him a nice little meal, and I'll put it down by the totem just north of Pike.
I'm sure he'll appreciate that.
I would. Someone will appreciate
That's
that.
true.
Some of the
Someone will
homeless
appreciate
people
that.
will. They'll just eat it.
Or the rats.
Get the rats going.
Yeah. Or the ghost rats.
Maybe I can fish out some gooey duck. Who knows?
All right. So there's also talk of seeing thin ghosts, really bone thin, emaciated bodies of previous people, which we could all.
Can I just?
Yeah. What's up?
I was can I just call bullshit on that one?
I mean, you can.
You're welcome to.
You're welcome to.
Oh yeah, I'm calling bullshit because they're not going to haunt. They were already passed. They wouldn't stick around. This is the Starvation Heights link, right?
Yeah.
Well, Well, I was just thinking that it's potential because there were a couple of sources that said it. So I guess it could, but I mean, we don't have like hard evidence on any of these. These are all like ghost stories more than anything. I know that Ross, who was recently on a couple of our episodes, told me that he did investigate it, and he actually spoke to someone or knew a story about someone who was a carpenter and was on a ladder, like fixing something when they were renovating a space for a restaurant. And out of the corner of this guy's eye, as he's on the ladder, he sees a bunch of people holding a casket walking by him, and then they disappeared.
Oh, that would be a good residual.
Yeah. So
sure,
that's probably a residual. And there's lots of things that happen where people see different types of ethnicity ghosts, if that makes sense. So technically the building, and let's be real, a majority of Seattle is built on some kind of Indian burial ground.
Yeah.
But this specifically is known to be buried or built on top of a burial ground. And there were a lot of former laborers who were like African American, Chinese, all different cultures that may have not been treated very well, that may have died in accidents and not been like buried properly.
True.
Who are upset for, and also for maybe even not receiving credit for any contributions that they had in building Seattle. So there's some said that those are seen there too. So the one fun fact is that this building cannot keep a tenant for a long period of time.
Right.
So
unless you're Kell's.
Unless you're Kell's. Yeah.
Kell's is hanging out. They're hanging in there.
And they've been there for...
Oh, I think since like 1997.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I thought it was earlier than that, but...
It might be. We could look that up. Yeah. But there's lots of different businesses that have gone in and gone out. I know that at one point there was a story of a restaurant being there and everyone just leaving it as it was.
Yeah.
And not like busting anything. Like literally the tables were still set.
Yeah.
And it was unoccupied.
When I'd been in there, I had been told a story about, I mean, going back to the skinny people, but when it was a restaurant and people would be there and not finish their meal. So they'd still have food left on their plates, and there would then be reports of these very angry, emaciated, transparent people angrily looking at them. Which again, possibly bullshit. I mean, we're making an assumption that any emaciated ghost is linked to Linda Hazard. There were plenty of other reasons why you would have an emaciated ghost.
Sure.
Maybe not quite as extreme as a Linda Hazard one.
Yeah.
But you easily could have had somebody who was dumped there.
Yeah.
Who had died from disease and lack of food and
yeah. So, I mean, the one thing that we don't really talk about with Seattle's history, 1918, we had the Spanish flu hit. But in 1903, there was another epidemic that swept through. Because if you go over to Bainbridge Island, and for readers not from here, Bainbridge Island's the island straight across from downtown Seattle.
Right across the water.
And a lot of kids died in 1903. And it was probably either a TB or diphtheria outbreak. So there would be wasting involved with that, but you just don't hear about anyone talking about that period of time, and it wiped out a bunch of people. So I don't know if you knew anything about that, Kim, but when they moved into the Butterworth, there was one of these epidemics happening.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that also goes into part of why they made the excuses for closing up the underground, is that there was a time where they were still using it. And it was a number of those disease outbreaks, including they said there was a plague scare. And there's some debate now as to whether or not that was ever a legitimate scare or if it was just an excuse to finally close up these very problematic areas. The underground was kind of a breeding ground even then for people to move in and for vice to happen. But disease was really running rampant, and our record keeping was crap. So it's why we don't have a lot of really specific records for things, just that, like, for names, for is why when we're trying to research some of these hauntings, we really have trouble coming up with the specific identity of a lot of these spirits. Nobody was recording it.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
You know who did record something?
Who?
Ghost Adventures.
God, yeah, they did.
Yes,
They
2010.
So
can I take a shot just because we're talking about Ghost
yeah, but
Adventures?
hold on a second.
Okay.
I just want to make it relevant.
Uh-huh. It's Ghost
We
Adventures.
all have an opinion about Ghost Adventures.
We might. It's possible.
Douchetown 2019. So
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
they do go to some pretty cool spots.
They do.
However, in this episode, they were very young in the process. They were in season 4 was when they went to Kell's.
Okay.
And they claimed to have a photo of a creature that was crouching down at the top of a
Was
staircase.
it Bigfoot?
No, it was little.
Was it
like a little
Bat-Squatch?
creature.
It was
No.
Bat-Squatch.
Short
No, it was
Squatch.
little one.
Short Squatch.
It was Short Squatch.
It was me. Just kidding, it wasn't me.
It was Snooky.
Well, actually, what I think it really was probably a child, one of the kids.
Oh, okay. that makes
So
sense.
maybe the little girl.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
you
who's
know?
playful, who's
Yeah.
naughty, who likes to
Who
mess
just,
with people.
Well,
She's probably crouched
and
down,
let's
like,
not forget
hiding.
we've got Jacob.
Oh, yeah.
We've got Jacob, the little
We
boy, but
do
he
have
hangs out
Jacob.
in the stairwell.
Oh yeah, it's probably Jacob. It's either Jacob or the little girl, but either way, they were trying to make it sound like it's a creature. It's a
demon from
It's a
hell?
demon.
Yeah, they were trying to make it sound like it was one of those like, oh, we can't tell what the shape is. This doesn't look human. But they also
I'm
didn't
going
have
to rake your soul
the
apart.
creepiest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Aww.
I apologize to any listener
That's
out
so
there that's
cute.
like, I can't listen to this anymore because that was the creepiest thing I'm ever listening to in my entire
Thank you.
life.
Thank you. I love my voices. Thank you very much.
Well done,
You can
sir.
book me at jacobryce.com. It doesn't
Perfect.
exist, but still.
Well, you should make it. It should exist.
It should.
But anyway, they had this whole bit that they did on that creature that they documented, quote unquote. But there wasn't anything really relevant that they found. They heard like footsteps.
Right.
They heard like shuffling.
Mm.
But I mean, there's a lot of things like that you do hear, and there are things that can be debunked very easily. So I think as investigators ourselves, we are very quick to debunk things.
And naturally skeptical.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because as you should be.
Yeah.
You shouldn't believe that the first thing that you see is...
It's a demon!
Yeah, it's a demon.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, in 2010, though, was the Butterworth, because that building was under renovations for the longest time. Did they start in 2010? Because, like, if you've got... You would get those sounds if you had opened up one of the floors.
'Cause- so I was there in maybe 2012. And when I was there, I was up in the chapel, and it was under construction still, and had been at that point for at least a year or two. And because that was when I was told that one of the problems was they were having trouble retaining a contractor, because a contractor would come in and then weird shit would happen.
Yep, like all the ghosts that were carrying the caskets.
The ghost carrying caskets, but also some instances of like power tools spontaneously turning on.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And things flying across the room. So they were again, this is what I'm told. So they were having trouble retaining a contractor. And so, there was tools everywhere. There was stuff opened up. There was areas that we weren't supposed to walk to because they were not super stable or safe. It's very possible that could have contributed to some of the sounds they were hearing. And I doubt that was something they even touched on in the episode, which I didn't
No,
watch
they
the
just had an
episodes before.
outtake of how they make a sandwich with like meat that went bad. It's really not entertaining.
Cool.
It literally looks like a bunch of dudes from like middle school filming a video that's
I mean, to be fair,
vlog.
that is a handful of the ghost shows.
Okay, guys, so let's be real. With the ghosty shows,
Let's be
There's-
real.
there's entertainment.
Yeah.
And then there's ghost hunting.
Yeah.
And I just know the shows are entertainment.
And I think as long as people keep that in mind, which is also, I mean, like, honest to God, watching a real investigation like just a normal run-of-the-mill real investigation,
It's not that exciting.
it's really not.
Boring
waiting.
AF.
It's a
Yeah.
lot
Capital
of waiting.
AF.
And you don't always get evidence.
No.
And it's like anytime you want to capture something, it might not be around.
Yeah.
But when you don't want to capture
Yep.
it, it'll be around. So, and that doesn't mean, and just because you don't get evidence at an investigation doesn't mean it's not haunted. It just means you didn't catch it that time.
It's like when people get angry that something didn't happen on a tour, and I'm like, you understand, I don't control them.
No,
if I
and it's not an
did,
entertainment
I'd
thing.
be awesome.
Right, that would be a whole different gig for you to make
Yeah,
way more money.
I wouldn't just be doing tours, I'd be a ghost whisperer.
Oh my
Booyah.
gosh.
I would be Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Oh, let's do it.
Let's do this. We have this idea that hauntings are what we see in scary movies. This just constant stream of stuff. And I'd say like 99.9% of the time, that's just not true. Even the most active places, it's not like things are constantly flying across the room. Because if that were the case, we'd have real, concrete, hardcore evidence.
And some people have some evidence, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's concrete.
Yeah.
And it just depends on like how many people also got other evidence at the same time as that, you know, because you could also say that there's technological difficulties. You guys, Mercury is in retrograde.
Mercury is in retrograde.
I just sounded so valley. I can't even handle
Mercury is in retrograde.
Mercury is in retrograde, guys.
She's a valley girl, you know.
It's true. My original voice is coming out. I apologize.
It's okay.
But it's like things aren't reliable. Like technology is not reliable always. But you know what you see with your own eyes. You know what you hear. Just because you don't have hard evidence of it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right.
And I think, too, to the point of what we're talking about, entertainment versus actual evidence, it's up to you as to what you want to believe and what you want to take as real. I'm not going to lie to you, and I know that Jake is one of the perfect examples of someone who does love a good ghost show. But it's for
or a
entertainment.
bad one.
Good and bad. And when I say good, it's
I
ironic.
prefer the bad one.
Yeah, I know. I was joking when I said good.
It's like Lifetime movies. I can't stop watching them.
The Hallmark ones that are all about the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like a good Hallmark ghost show. So it's just really up to you as to what you like. And it's to each his own, you know? It's your prerogative. But what we like to do is to discuss what we know, what we see, what we've heard about. And that's why we wanted to talk about Butterworth today, because there's so much information in it, and it's so historical for our city, for the country even, for the traditions of what we do today, and how it still impacts everyone all the time. So, having said that, Jake, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes!
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Of course. We'd love to have you on again. And we're going to wrap up for today, but stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
For more.
For more information on our group, A Ghost, you can visit aghost.org. For more information on Spooked in Seattle or tours or all the awesome things that we have coming up, you can visit spookedinseattle.com.
Also, don't forget about us. Follow us on Instagram at AGHOST Stories and say hi. We are also on Facebook as AGHOST Stories Podcast. Please give us a like and see what we have going on. If you have any paranormal stories of your own that you're like, oh my God, I can't hold this in anymore, I need to share with the world, please type them out. Send them to us. We can probably read them on a future episode. Email us at aghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com.
Please subscribe and or follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. We are easily accessible on Spotify as well as on Transistor at aghoststoriespodcast.transistor.fm.
Thank you for listening, and stay spooky, Seattle.